It was certainly a first for the New York Stock Exchange to have a pickleball match in the historic boardroom. Lena, was this the first time you've ever played in someplace quite so fancy?
Yeah, I think to me this is crazy. This is such a historic event. I picked up pickleball in a public park about a year and a couple months ago, and to play in a New York Stock Exchange boardroom, it's something that I would have never dreamt of.
And Lee, you actually got to ring the opening bell. What was that like?
It was a bucket list check mark for sure. Definitely something I would have never expected in my life, and thankful that pickleball and the New York Stock Exchange came together in Major League and provided this wonderful opportunity. It was phenomenal.
So Lena, I heard you say you started a year and a couple months ago. Anna, I know you just started less than a year ago in October of 2021, and now you're already a pro. How does that happen?
I have no idea. I think I'm really lucky, very talented, and I've played about as much as one could play in a few months, I think. But yeah, such an honor to be here. So crazy to be here so quickly. So thanks to everyone who made it happen.
And I'm going to come over here to you, Zane. Let's talk about your origin story. What introduced you to, or who? Why did you start playing? Tell us your origin story with pickleball.
Yeah. So I guess I'm the veteran here. I've been playing for about 9 years. My dad got me into pickleball when I was in high school. He took me to a senior center where they were playing pickleball on a gym floor. I got my butt kicked, and I kind of fell in love with the sport in the process. So I've played ever since.
Rob, what about you? How'd you get started?
Yeah, so I had an advertising business in 2017 that I sold to my partner, and I was just looking for my next thing. A couple years passed, and Adam Franklin, who runs Franklin Sports, is a buddy of mine, and he sent me a paddle. He said, hey, all the good pickleball players now are ex-tennis players. So I sent me a paddle, literally Googled pickleball lesson in Austin, Texas at the time, and had a lesson, and I got hooked ever since.
You know, those of us who maybe aren't as familiar with pickleball until now, I did learn in high school, as I think I've told you guys, but haven't played since, might think of pickleball for maybe a more mature population, maybe retirement. But Zane, you actually did retire. You worked for a year as a CPA, right, or as an auditor. But I guess, how did you break that stereotype of it's not just for old people and actually become interested to make that shift from tennis to pickleball?
Sure. I mean, maybe old people just have good taste. It's just a fun game, and so I was pretty immediately addicted to the sport, and I don't care whether I'm the only younger person playing, and it's certainly a lot more younger people are starting to come in and play, especially after, what I've seen after COVID and the pandemic is a lot of people started picking it up with their family. It's very cross-generational, and a lot of people my age are playing, and now people are playing in club, college, pickleball leagues. So it's pretty cool to see.
And Anna, you just recently graduated from college, right? And you played college tennis. Talk to me about the transition from tennis to pickleball. Is it just, obviously you're already pro in a very short time, but is it a pretty seamless transition, or are there a lot of new rules to learn?
There are a lot of new rules, a lot of new terms. Pickleball is unique in that, things like the kitchen, dinking, a lot of strange terminology, and a lot of the hardest transition from tennis is kind of learning how to play slow, how to hit slow shots at the kitchen line, and that's something that I'm continuing to learn. I'm definitely a bit of a banger, but it's easy to learn, hard to master, is what I would say, coming from tennis.
Lee, so many people that I talk to that know pickleball, love pickleball, but they really also love the social aspect of it. Does when you're actually competing as a pro in some of these tournaments for money, does the social aspect still stay, or does it become more cutthroat and a little less fun, if you will?
When you're on the court, there's always that element of competition, right? There's money on the line, there's real money on the line these days, so we are definitely more competitive. But I think pickleball is still in its infancy, that we're all still really good friends off the court. It's like we can, beat each other up on the court, but then off the court we're talking and laughing, and we're all friends, and that's the beauty of pickleball. And I think it's transcended into the pro league, where we're all still. Wouldn't you say, guys, like we're all still pretty good friends? Zane, don't give me that dirty look.
Speak for yourself.
No, but it is. It's a one sport that's sort of this unifying platform across all levels, all ages, all genders, and it's just so fun that we get to be a part of it, and we're on this ride from the ground floor, and the sky's the limit. So it'll be interesting to see in 5 years where this sport goes and how it's changed.
Well, Lena, you actually competed today, although it wasn't for a prize. And I saw smiles on everybody's face, really, while you were playing. I know you're playing this weekend again for prize money. Will you be smiling then, too?
I do get intense on the court. I do smile occasionally, for sure.
When
but
you win, you
yeah,
smile.
yeah. But I would say I do bring that competitive spirit on the court. But as Lee said, off the court, I'm all smiles.
And I do want to ask you, Zane, about a particular move I've heard about, the Zane saw. What is it?
It might be better to ask these guys about it.
It's the worst thing ever.
You've been on the receiving end.
Nobody wants to be on the receiving end, especially when the camera's on you, because you may fall, you may whiff the ball, you may not connect, you look like a complete beginner when you're returning a serve, and then he just smiles at you as after he's done it, and you whiffed it, and you're like, great, thank you world for,
So it's a way of serving. If you impart spin on the toss while you're serving, it'll make the ball kick in different directions. And I guess I started kind of doing that in pickleball. I have to give a shout out to this guy Morgan Evans who did it before me. I just copied it and made it better in certain ways. So adds a little spice to the serve, to the underhand serve.
Well, Rob, we keep hearing about how pickleball is really taking the world by storm, especially the U.S. It's the fastest growing sport. Are you worried that as it becomes more popular, you'll have even more competition and more Zane Saw-like moves?
I want more players to come in. The more high-quality tennis players that convert over, the more the sport's going to grow. So I think I welcome the competition. I'm actually pretty surprised on, coming from tennis, it's easy to get good at singles pretty quickly, but doubles it's a different beast. So I think it's humbling. Like when I first came in, I was playing 55, 60-year-olds that were just crushing me, and it was the most frustrating thing on the planet, which is actually what got me hooked because I'm so competitive. I'm like, that person's not athletic. How are they beating me in the sport? I got to figure it out. So I think the more the merrier.
And Anna, just in terms of the sport's popularity, still being pretty new at it, what's your hope for 5 years down the line?
In 5 years, it would be cool if pickleball is, regularly on the major TV and broadcast networks. That would be so cool. I think more and more people are just going to be coming in. More people are going to understand the game, play the game, get familiar with the game. And when I first heard of pickleball, I was upset in my local community that a couple tennis courts had been resurfaced to pickleball, and now I'm like, get rid of the tennis courts. I want pickleball courts. So it's funny. I think that tennis courts in America may be in trouble, and I'm okay with it.
Well, Lena, you and Anna both still have a day job despite being pro. Is the goal to eventually be able to quit your day job and play pickleball full time?
Yes, that's the ultimate goal. Yes, absolutely.
All right, and just in terms of, I'm just curious of how much you guys actually train and play, especially given that you have, some of you have full-time jobs outside of pickleball. How much time are you spending each week?
I think for me, it's been a very big change in the past year. So I had a son 1.5 years ago, so I have a little guy. So I would train during his nap times a lot, like early on when I started, a couple hours a day. Rob is very familiar with San Marcos, Texas, the Christina Dorman and Walter Dorman Pickleball Academy, that's what we call it. So they're very welcoming. I'd go there a couple times a week and just kind of have larger, blocks of time, 3-4 hours in a row, and then just train in Austin a couple hours in the evenings usually. So I would say 4 to 5 times a week. And I think now that more people are getting into pickleball, doing it for full time, it's putting more pressure to train more. So then I'm looking into ways to improve my fitness, not just pickleball, how to improve recovery and, kind of balance it all out.
And Lee, because I'm assuming you've probably played the longest among this crew, seeing as they've only been playing for about a year, although about 9 years, actually, that's true, among the ladies. That's a nice way of saying you're the oldest. No, for someone who hasn't played pickleball in a long time, but would like to, now after seeing how much fun you guys had out there, what's your best advice for a newbie?
Go get a paddle and go down to your local courts because it's the most welcoming sport. We always joke, a lot of us that crossed over from tennis, when was the last time you went down to your tennis club and said, can I get next? It never happens. Pickleball, before you even can ask, can I get next, they'll invite you in. They're so welcoming and they want new people. And it's just this great synergy that happens, and it's a great social space for people and a community to be active in. And there's very, very little barrier to entry. And honestly, if you can get a paddle and just Google your local courts and go there, you will have a blast. I guarantee it. If not, drinks are on me.
Is that true, guys? You're welcoming in the competition?
It's very different than tennis, in my opinion. Tennis was very cutthroat, and yeah, you're right. There's never been a I've got next in tennis. But pickleball has been super welcoming, super social, and it's been a blast, yeah.
All right, Zane, 9 years of playing pickleball. How much are you training every week?
I play probably 2 to 3 hours a day, and then do some off-court type of fitness work, believe it or not. Yeah, a lot of stretching and recovery so that I can do it all again the next day. So I'd say I'd devote 4 hours per day probably to my pickleball game, but then also my business is pickleball as well, where I am teaching and doing all types of, I guess I get to do fun stuff like exhibitions here at the NYSE. So it's a lot of pickleball, but training probably 4 hours per day.
Wow, you have to really love it. Well, congratulations, especially, sorry guys, but to Zane and Anna for winning the game. And thanks so much for joining us. This was fun.